Hi there, it's Mr. Clark. Welcome to lesson Clef.3.1 on more C Clefs. So, as we've mentioned, the purpose of clefs is to make music easier to read to avoid excessive ledger lines. So you'll also historically see C clefs on the first, second, and fifth lines of the staff. We've already seen it on third, alto clef, and centered on the fourth, tenor clef. Um, Nowadays, people mostly use tenor and bass clef and simplify reading by just having to worry about a couple different clefs. Historically, particularly in the Renaissance and early Baroque, um, they used a lot of C clefs, so they avoided ledger lines and made music easier to read that way. It's a trade off one way or the other. So if you're dealing with a bunch of Renaissance music, you'll have to be familiar with your C clefs. So here we have soprano clef, which puts C on the bottom line, then D, F, A, C, C, E, G, B, D. Historically, it was used for soprano voices, hence soprano clef, the right hand of Old French keyboard parts, and Old French second violin parts. Fun facts. The arrangement of sharps and flats is the same as tenor clef. Again, don't bother memorizing this, just have it on hand as a reference. When you center it on the second line of the staff, you have mezzo soprano clef. So your spaces are B, D, F, and A. Lines are A, C, E, G, and B. Historically, it was used for mezzo soprano voice, Old French second viola parts, and some Renaissance flute parts. And you have an inverted sharp and flat arrangement where it goes down first and then alternates. So looks kind of funky there. And finally, when you center it on line 5, it's known as the baritone clef. So middle C is up here, so C3 is down here, C, E, G, B, and your lines are B, D, F, A, C. And for reading all of these, again, I would recommend using the metronome, using this sort of exercise where you're just saying note names, and that will rapidly increase your fluency. I'm speaking from experience. That would highly recommend. Um, so baritone clef was historically used for baritone voice in the left hand of Old French keyboard parts. More commonly, because this is F3, this is the center of the bass clef, so you could do the equivalent thing by centering the bass clef on the third line, and we'll see that in the next lesson. Um, Historically, both of these were used. This one was probably a little more common, but you do see this as well. That's why I'm mentioning it. The order of sharps is kind of funky. You have this like 2, 2, 1, 2, or like 1, 2, 3, 1. Then flats is the same inversion as mezzo soprano clef. And I couldn't actually find a historical reference for this. Um, was it this one? Yeah, it may have been this one where I couldn't actually find a historical reference. This was just what my music notation software said was correct. So we're going with that. That's all I have for now. See you next time.